We begin with outsourcing jobs at Mitt Romney's Bain Capital. Salon's Joan Walsh is an MSNBC political analyst, and Michael Shear is the White House correspondent for Time magazine. Mitt Romney frequently says that he'll stand up to China and help bring jobs back home from overseas, but that wasn't always the case. A damning new report from the Washington Post's Tom Hamburger today lays out clearly just how invested Romney's firm Bain Capital was in companies that outsource jobs, including to China. Quote, during the nearly 15 years that Romney was actively involved in running Bain, it owned companies that were pioneers in the practice of shipping work from the United States to overseas call centers and factories making computer components, according to the filings with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission. Michael, is this going to stick? I ask that question because Bain has already been an issue. The charges of vulture capitalism in the Beltway, you hear people say that they didn't play so well, yet out in Middle America and in focus groups, I think you get a different reaction. What will be the reaction to this?
I still think we're at the very beginning of this conversation. Mitt Romney so far is sticking to his line, which is I have experience in the private sector. He doesn't really want to go beyond that to discuss specifically what he did at Bain. The Obama campaign is determined to hit them over and over again all through the summer. And they have had some success in these swing states doing this. I think this is just another piece of that. Romney's going to have to be able to establish a difference between his experience in the private sector, which was not about creating jobs. I think everybody admits here was creating more efficient companies, about increasing profits and lowering the cost of products, and what he plans to do when he comes into office, which is not outsourcing jobs, despite what Chicago is sort of saying right now, that a vote for Mitt Romney is a vote for offshoring more jobs. Mitt Romney hasn't made that pivot yet. He hasn't yet he doesn't want to have that discussion, but I think it's going to happen at some point.
I can tell you the president was quick to react to the Post story. He was in Tampa this afternoon. Let's take a look.
Today it was reported in the Washington Post that the companies his firm owned were pioneers in the outsourcing of American jobs to places like China and India. Pioneers. Let me tell you, Tampa, we do not need an outsourcing pioneer in the Oval Office. We need a president who will fight for American jobs and fight for American manufacturing. That's what my plan will do.
And Romney's camp responded quickly to the Post story. According to Politico, Romney's spokesperson, Andrea Saul, said, quote, this is a fundamentally flawed story that does not differentiate between domestic outsourcing versus offshoring, nor versus work done overseas to support U.S. exports. As president, he will implement policies that make it easier and more attractive for companies to create jobs here at home. Joan Walsh, that's a lot to follow. That's a confusing issue. Is that going to wash?
No, it's an intentionally confusing issue and statement, Michael, and I think you can see that. The problem for the Romney campaign is that the Post story is very, very explicit that they were talking about offshoring. It is true that outsourcing can be moving jobs out of a company to another firm that does it cheaper in the United States, and that does happen. But the Post was very careful to delineate the firms that Bain invested in whose business model essentially was offshoring a lot of technology jobs. So I think, I agree with Michael, the Obama campaign has had some success already with Bain. Top strategists seem a little bit uncomfortable with it, and you've got the problem of Wall Street Democrats, quite honestly, not sure how hard they want to hit private capital, private equity firms. I think it is resonating with voters, and I think on this particular issue, you've got a hypocrisy problem, because you've got Mitt Romney actually saying one of the few concrete things he says is that basically he's going to pick a fight with China, and we've got examples of how he worked to send American jobs to China.
Michael
so
Shear,
I think this is going to stick with them.
How about the argument that you'll hear, I suspect, from Romney and his supporters, that his job was not the same as the job which he now seeks? In other words, his job was to make money as a business leader. He's got an all different job description should he become the president.
No, that is their argument, and implicit in that is that someone who has worked in the private sector, who understands why companies are shipping jobs overseas, will have an advantage over the current president. I think that's the turf on which we're going to be playing this out. I don't think it's a situation in which Romney can just get through this election saying, I was once a businessman, therefore I'm going to be a better president, I can lead us to a brighter future. Or the president can say, Mitt Romney was once a businessman, therefore he wants to take your job and send it to China. Neither of those will really wash. The discussion is going to be about whether the actual proposals that Mitt Romney has and the actual proposals that Barack Obama has will lead the country to the future that more voters want. And that's the turf on which we're going to play this out.
Joan, when Bain was last an issue, when the charge was one of vulture capitalism, you know that there were a number of Democrats who apparently spoke out of turn. Cory Booker comes to mind. I can't see a circumstance, a corresponding circumstance, when the issue is outsourcing. Can you?
No, I really can't, because, and also to get back to what Michael was saying about the debate between their proposals, I mean, Mitt Romney also wants to slash taxes on corporations' foreign operations. So there are actually lots of ways for the Obama administration to say this is very much about his proposals as president, and that his experience at Bain really did shape the way he looks at the economy, and he's coming into office, if he gets into office, with that mindset, which is really about how to help rich people make more money and really leaves American workers out of the equation.
Well, to that end, Romney frequently invokes his time at Bain to suggest that he would be a better leader on the economy. He says he knows how jobs are created and what causes them to leave.
I spent my life in private enterprise, 25 years. I know how businesses work. I know what causes them to leave and what will bring them back. I want to use that experience to get America working again. For me, it's all about good jobs for the American people and a bright and prosperous future.
And also, the president then focuses his attack on Romney and Bain recently on the issue of outsourcing. Here was an ad that the campaign put out just yesterday.
Running for governor, Mitt Romney campaigned as a job creator.
I know how jobs are created.
But as a corporate raider, he shipped jobs to China and Mexico. As governor, he did the same thing, outsourcing state jobs to India. Now he's making the exact same pitch.
I know why jobs come and why they go.
Outsourcing jobs. Romney economics. It didn't work then, and it won't work now.
Michael Scheer, strange thing, I saw that was reviewed by The Post, which had the story today, and it was the recipient of several Pinocchios. So it seems like within the Washington Post they can't get it together as to the accuracy of those charges.
Well, no, I think you can say that the story was accurate and that ad is false. I don't think they're exactly the same thing. But there is an argument here. You could have surrogates for Democrats defending this. I can imagine Steve Radner, if you had him on, would come on and say, look, there are benefits to this sort of comparative advantage of allowing other countries to produce things cheaper. If they can produce it cheaper, we're able to then buy the products cheaper. We have then more money to spend. I mean, there are arguments to defend what is not really a good word in this election, the creative destruction of capitalism. What Romney is saying in the clips you just played was, my job as president will be different from my job as the private sector businessman. My job will be to create jobs. I'm going to use the experience from my private sector days, but my job as president is not going to be what my job at Bain was, which was just to increase returns for my shareholders.
Joan Walsh, quickly, it seems the Obama campaign all too happy to make this a referendum on Bain.
Yes, you've got David Axelrod already calling Mitt Romney the outsourcer in chief. I think that they think that this is a really productive avenue for them, and that the Post story and the specific revelations about China give that whole line of reasoning a lot of new life.
Thank you, Joan Walsh. Thank you, Michael Scheer. We appreciate your being here.